Happy
Hey,
Tuesday. Hey, happy
bird's eye
Tuesday.
view. Here we go.
Yes. Like, Doug, where do the weeks go?
It
We
just
just do
skips
one
by
show.
one show after the other, and now you've got a couple other shows too, right? I mean, you're talking to a lot of people right now, and there's so many cross references. It's fantastic.
Yes. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, co host of the Press Box, and over to our mighty host, Doug Smith. And how are things in Ottawa right now, Doug?
Broadcasting from the shores of the Ottawa River, and if anybody's in this part of town, part of the country, man, did we get a beautiful weekend. And I actually got to wet a line, and I didn't catch anything yesterday, but tested out a new fishing rod. So I hope everybody else was doing something like that to rest their mind over such a
Mhm.
beautiful weekend. How was it out in Drayton Valley?
Oh man, it was cold. It was like 7 degrees, 8 degrees.
No,
Yeah, the
really.
whole weekend. So I hosted a little retreat for a couple of ladies, and so I was working, but we didn't get the good weather. So, but anyway, it's going to warm up, and you know what it's like in Canada. Uh, don't waste time talking about the weather because it's going to change in short order, right?
It is,
Well,
and
well, you look like you got some sun.
I got a lot of sun. Yes, and my wife has just decided at this stage, which is fantastic, to learn a new game, and the game is golf. So she's taking up the sport, and we spent a little bit of time this weekend
Oh,
out in the sun and had a just an amazing, just an absolute amazing time because we've never played that game together. So
right. Awesome. Well, good. Yeah. Well, we've got a few things going on, lots going on with the shows. Our Today show is this is our third full week, so we broadcast at 9 a.m. my time every day live, and it's been hectic. I have to tell you because just getting our guests on there and lots of people wanting to be on there because we've themed the show. So love to have you and Jim join us sometime on the Today Show. And I believe you're booked for the 29th of May. So it'll be really fun to have you on that show.
well, speaking of Jim, today we have Jim Kyte coming on, former teammate of mine.
Oh,
Um, Played for I think 6 teams in the NHL. Played I probably played 60, 70 games against Jim Kite, and I was fortunate to play with him in Pittsburgh. Finally, I got a chance to play with him in Pittsburgh, and he was the first deaf hockey player to play. And so Jim's got an incredible story of playing 16 years and then leaving the National Hockey League and then becoming a professor, and taking a position at a college. So I'm really looking forward to hearing parts of the journey that I haven't heard
great. I can hardly wait.
yet.
Whoa, yay. And of course, our mother network is the Disability Channel, but presently, right now, we stream in other places. So we're streaming live right now on my Facebook page, Laurie Davis, and our corporate page, Self Worth the Missing Link, Superstars page, and also on YouTube, Laurie Davis Show Host. And of course, we share the show many other places. Last week, our second week, we were shared on 15 different platforms. So, yes, the show's growing and going. So, looking forward to that.
Which show was that, Lori? Tell me, that went out on 15 platforms.
The Today Show.
The Today Show, excellent,
Mhm,
excellent, it's
mhm.
fantastic.
Right. Yes. So, anyway, over to, I want to bring Jim in right away. But before we do that, I'm just going to share. We're going to watch some snowflakes go up in the air. And this is a break, a little commercial break. So, this is where you have an opportunity to provide an ad to support the show because the Disability Channel is a nonprofit organization. So, we depend on donations, advertising now on all of our shows, And any one of our shows, if you have a product, a program, a service, a cause, an event coming up that you'd like to share. And also, of course, we're in the throes of wanting to find some corporate sponsors as well. So if any of that appeals to you, you can think about that, because as I bring this up, this is where we would put you up instead of you watching 30 seconds of snowflakes going up in the air. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, co-hosting the Press Box along with my esteemed host, Mr. Doug Smith, and a good buddy of his. And Jim, I know nothing, okay? So I'm going to maybe have the odd question here and there for sure. But welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you very much. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's always good to see you. We're fortunate. We live in the same city, and Jim spends his time on a lake just on the Quebec side. A lot of time up there, huh, Jim?
Yeah, I have a place. I live in Ottawa, but I spend every moment that I can up on the Quebec side in a place called Chelsea, Quebec. So we're here all summer. Starting, nice. Yeah. So it's. We're 20 minutes from Parliament Hill in the middle of a park, so it's a pretty special place.
Nice.
Yeah, we just go up there to take a vacation every now and then. Jim gets to hang out up there.
Yeah, well, you have a boat, and he can come down fishing.
Yeah, so Jim, it's always fantastic to have you on and to hear the story. I've only heard pieces of the story, and I've had the chance to hear you speaking at the front of the room, because if you want a speaker for one of your events, Jim Kyte is a phenomenal speaker and a guy that you want to have at the front of the room. But maybe if you could share with us, the skinny on you and what you share from the front of the room and what your message is really all about. That'd be fantastic for everybody who's listening.
Well, as you said in the preview, I'm the first and only deaf player in the history of the National Hockey League. So I'm from a family of 5 boys and 1 girl, born and raised here in Ottawa, and all the boys, including my father, have some level of hearing impairment or deafness. And so I have a 100 decibel loss. That is one, if you have an audiogram is generally out of 115 or 120 decibels, but generally 115 decibels. So I have a 100 out of 115 decibel loss, and in the mid-range in particular. And so I'm considered profoundly deaf. And however, I communicate orally. And there's a whole reason behind that. We can get into that. And I do know how to sign very, very poorly. I'm not in the environment enough. It's just like just like any language, you need to be in the environment and you need to continue practicing it. So I grew up in Ottawa, and through my minor hockey journey, I was drafted by the Cornwall Royals, who at that time was the closest rival to the Ottawa 67s, where Doug played. When Doug played, I only played training camp with him because the Cornwall Royals played in the Quebec League at that time, and Ottawa was in the Ontario League, so they never really played against each other except for that 1 year. But Doug was the 2nd pick overall in 1980, or 81, I should say, and behind Dale Howshak. And so he ended up as an 18-year-old going off to Los Angeles. So I didn't really get an opportunity to play against him until I joined the National Hockey League. I see Kathy Bout. So you get some messages as we go here. That's great.
Yeah. She has a couple of compliments. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I Well, I can talk about cochlear implants as well because I'm a candidate for it, but due to a unique situation, I'm really not that great of a candidate for it. But so I'm getting by with amplification. Well, I think I'm getting by. My friends and family might think otherwise. Particularly my wife, she's repeating a lot of things, and I really need to be looking at somebody. I'm a lip reader, and so I may hear someone. So if I'm not looking at somebody, and I had this with teachers and also coaches and so forth, when they turn your back to the room and they start writing on the chalkboard or the whiteboard, this is what we're going to do. To me, as Charlie Brown's teacher, I hear wah 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 wah. I hear something, but I don't quite understand it. So, so I ended up getting drafted in 1982. I was a first round draft pick to the Winnipeg Jets, and so I started the next year. I spent half the year in junior and half the year in Winnipeg. And then from that point forward, I was full-time in the National Hockey League. And I played for 5 teams, Doug, not 6.
Okay.
Chronologically, I went from, I started in Winnipeg, got traded to Pittsburgh, where I crossed paths with Doug. And then I ended up going to Calgary, coming to Ottawa the very first year of the team. And then I went to the Las Vegas Thunder in the International Hockey League at the time. And after the lockout ended in 1994, I signed with the San Jose Sharks. And so I played the lockout season the following year with San Jose. And then I finished my career in Kansas City with the Kansas City Blades of the International Hockey League before I was a victim of a car accident. And a car ran a stop sign and T-boned me on the driver's door. And the witnesses say, I don't remember much about it. The witnesses say my car slid across 3 lanes of traffic and hit the curb, and I started flipping down the sidewalk. My car started flipping down the sidewalk with me inside it, and witnesses say it flipped at least 3 times. And so I didn't break anything in the accident. They say people fracture bones and so forth when they see it happening because they tense up. But because I got hit from the side, I was very relaxed when I got hit. And it was after practice. We had a really tough practice that day, and lots of conditioning at the end. So anyways, I got hit, and I woke up with the fire department cutting me out of the car. So there's no, I didn't fracture anything, but the passenger seat headrest beside me was twisted 180 degrees, and the fire department theorizes that my head hit the headrest, and that's what twisted it. So
saved your life.
Be here.
Yeah, that headrest saved your life, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you had a seatbelt on, if you didn't have a seatbelt on, it was game over anyways, right?
Yeah, I most likely would have been thrown from the car. And so I had severe post-concussion syndrome from that accident. And back in the late 90s, the foremost concussion expert at the time was a Dr. James Kelly out of Chicago. You may or may not know, Eric Lindros was a hockey player. He had some concussion issues, and anybody who had a concussion was going to go see this doctor in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so I went to see him in June of 1998, and he told me he'd never clear me to play hockey again. So that was the end of my hockey career. So instead of having 30 teams in the NHL and all the other teams in Europe tell me, you get lost, you're not good enough, I just had a doctor say, you're finished. So there's different ways of looking at it. It was a clear cut. I wasn't well. I was like I had 3 young children at the time, and I was like the 4th child on the couch for about 2.5 to 3 years before getting my bearings. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But a lot of people ask me, the common question is, what's it like playing in the National Hockey League the hearing impairment or being deaf. And my response to that is, I don't know any different. It's my normal. It's my normal. So I've always had my hearing impairment. And so my normal is very different, but I know that I did things differently than other players did. I can talk about that if you wish. There's a whole, yeah. So a lot of times, with a higher level of team sport you play, the more important communication comes in. So in minor hockey, there might be a little bit of talking. In junior, there's more talking. When you get to the NHL, if you go to an Edmonton Oilers game, Laurie, and you're sitting close to the ice, and there's no music playing and so forth, but you'll hear all the talking that's happening. And I didn't have the luxury of hearing on the ice. So I countered that I did all the talking. And I let my teammates know where I was at all time. And so that was one thing. And if my partner was a guy named Mario Marwa for a number of years. I played with a number of defensemen with Mario. Mario had a booming voice. So when he wanted to say something to me, everybody heard it. So, and I developed a very positional game. I was never, that's one of I was a defensive defenseman. I was never one rushing the puck all the time because I was always worried about being in position at all times. And I studied video. So I knew the systems inside and out as to almost just as good, just as well as the coaches. And so you get the puck and the NHL, Doug will say, it will tell you, it's an extremely fast league, and it's really what's option one, and if it's not there, you're going to option two. If it's not there, then it's option three is off the glass and out, or you just don't give the puck to the other team. And so I developed a very simple game and a very defensive-minded game. Another thing that I did was I noticed this first in junior hockey, because when you're playing in minor hockey, all the plexiglass never gets cleaned. But I found in junior hockey, they started cleaning the glass before on the inside and the outside of the plexiglass around the rink, and that was so that the paying fans would have an unobstructed view of the arena, of the action on the ice. So I found that when I was going back for the puck, that I would, I understand people with good hearing can hear the skates in the ice of the player that's forechecking you or that's chasing you in the ice, and you can
that's
sort of tell.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could tell how quickly they're coming and where they might be. I didn't have that luxury, so what I would do is I'd be going back for the puck, and I would look into the glass. I would look into the plexiglass and not look through the glass at the fans, but look at the mirror-like reflection to know whether someone was coming off my left shoulder or my right shoulder. And it would allow me just that fraction of a second for decision-making as to which way I might want to go. Because I played in a very physical era, and if there's a forechecker coming, you knew where you were going to get hit. Yes.
Yeah, and then you can hit from behind, and it was rarely a penalty.
Yeah, and you learned how to defend yourself against that, but so you go into the corners a certain way that. In today's game, it's almost a strategy to go in and dare the forechecker to hit you from behind because it's going to be a penalty. But in our era, that wasn't so much the case. And but just being able to get a glimpse of where the player was coming up the left or right shoulder, how close he might be, and if you're in the corner, you could actually see on the opposite side of the ice. If you looked at because to see if your winger was back in position. So you might be able to rim the puck around to the winger that was coming back. So it's not something that I did every time I went back, but it was one of the tools that in my toolbox that I used that a hearing person generally wouldn't have to use. And another thing that I realized, and I didn't realize I did this so much until after I stopped playing, and I started teaching other kids how to play defense. I was a guest instructor at Gary Galley's defenseman camp. Luke Richardson, Gary Galley, and myself. And between the three of us, we had 50 years of NHL experience on the ice. And I started explaining some of the things that I did, and it just had a eureka moment. Is that I vividly remember when I'm on if you're not a hockey fan, it might be a bit confusing, this explanation, but generally when I'm on the offensive blue line, when the puck is in the other team's end and I'm on the blue line, I subconsciously counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the opposing jerseys. I remember playing. Now, when we played, I was in Edmonton. The home team wore the white jerseys when we played. Today, it's flipped. Even when I watched the game on TV, I still got to think for a second. Okay, the home team is wearing the dark jersey. So, anyways, I remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white jerseys. While Grant Fuhrer was in net, so that would be the 6th jersey. But making sure that all the white jerseys were in front of me. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, okay, where did that? So things didn't add up in front of me. So I just knew somebody was behind me. And sure enough, my bench is screaming at me to let me know that Glenn Anderson had snuck behind. But I didn't hear my bench. I just knew, I should say, that it didn't add up in front of me. So there's only one other explanation, because I would never be on the power play. He was behind me.
So that sure enough, you're just cycling that in your head the whole time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's right. Yeah, just making sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's something that I did subconsciously to make sure that nobody would sneak behind me.
Wow.
And so another thing that I did, and I had to teach, which I mentioned earlier about Charlie Brown's teacher, I had to teach all my coaches how to draw on the whiteboard. And draw on the whiteboard, then turn and face the team and explain the drill. And if you didn't, I wasn't shy about asking them to repeat themselves, or go up afterwards and said, sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat it? And then I never, if I could avoid it, particularly in minor hockey, when there was a new drill, I never went first. Always went second. Went third, ideally. I went third and 9, because I could see the first 2 players do it. And it was monkey see, monkey do. And that's how I got to it. And yes, Kathy, I'm a big lip reader. I a combination of the sound and reading and seeing someone's mouth, I can put things together. And then, so I think I covered most of everything in terms of what I tried to do: video, advocating for yourself, and using the tools and other senses that you have that someone who doesn't have poor hearing would never think about doing because they didn't need to. So when Doug, you were talking about what do you speak about? A lot of times I talk about give somebody an opportunity. I was given an opportunity to play. I may do things differently than somebody else, but the outcome is just as good or sometimes better. So
I never knew, Jim. Being on your team, playing on your team, I had no idea, right? And I'm sure that very few players, because they would have a hard time to relate to those little things that you do to compensate, right? To gain a competitive advantage where there wasn't one before.
Yeah. So if you think about it, I think back in 1970, or there was a study released in 1999 examining the 1975 birth year in Ontario. And there were 30,000 kids playing minor hockey in Ontario that were born in 1975. Of those 30,000, 212 of them were drafted into the junior league, the OHL, and another 20 some. I'm going off. My memory's not the best, but another small number went on NCAA scholarships. Of those people, 36 ended up getting drafted into the National Hockey League. 22 actually played a game in the NHL. And no, I'm sorry. 22 actually played a game in the NHL. 11 were still playing hockey, but only 6 were still playing hockey 4 years later. So out of 30,000 children, 6 kids ended up playing in the National Hockey League. So the chances of playing in the NHL, there is a chance. Right? Doug and I are evidence of that. But the vast majority of kids don't make it. So for me to be able, and in the NHL, there wasn't, even to this day, on the ice, there's no diversity, inclusion, DEI. You need to perform. And you have to perform against the best in the world. And so for me to be able to perform against the best in the world and carve out a career, so the things that I did allowed me to do that. And so that's what I go back to. I did things differently, but the results were the same. And so if you give somebody with a disability an opportunity, that's the key. Give them an opportunity. They may do it differently, but you'd be very surprised at the outcome.
Yeah.
And sometimes I call these false filters. People are making these assumptions about people, what they can and cannot do. And we need to get rid of those false filters and provide opportunity, because people with disability have a very, very low employment rate, and there's a huge shortage of skilled workers, and it's an untapped resource for companies.
Really do believe that, Jim. And the Disability Channel, what it's doing right now with the Invictus Games, there's cohorts going through of former soldiers learning the media business, and then they're going to be doing some of the work at the Invictus Games. Very exciting time for people with disabilities, and we're doing everything we can, Laurie and I, to feed that machine with voices like yours. Now, the transition from hockey just to real life is one thing. For somebody who has a hearing disability to go from hockey to being a professor at a university, like, I really want to hear that story. When was the first time you decided, after your concussion, your career ended, 3 years, Nancy taking care of you, like, and then all of a sudden you turned a switch, and what happened that day?
Well, being deaf and also having a brain injury that I was recuperating from. So I ended up started speaking. And just by happenstance, the dean of the School of Business at the local college in Ottawa heard me speak. And he said that he was looking for somebody to put an advisory committee together for a new program that he had. He had an idea of having a sport business management program about the business of sport. And my role was just to be on the advisory committee and assemble a group of experts, industry experts, to see. That's the number one thing with a college program, is that, is there a need for the program? Right, so you get the experts in. Is this filling a need? And if there is a need, what knowledge, skills, and abilities do you require the graduates to possess in order for you to hire them? So it really connects to the industry. So I put a blue ribbon panel of experts together, and we had a couple of meetings. And about 6 weeks later, I hadn't heard anything. And I thought my reputation, I got these people involved, and I said, I thought my reputation was at stake here. So I called the dean and said, what's going on? Like, there hasn't been any news. And it turned out the person that they took all the information that we had provided resigned from the college and actually moved out to Edmonton because her daughter was not well. So I just happened to say, what needs to be done?
Wow,
and
good line.
And he said, well, if you're serious, I need a proposal in 2 weeks. And I saw a window this big.
Yeah.
And I drove straight through it. I had an opportunity. And so that I dove straight in. I'd never developed a program before, but the dean showed some interest in me pursuing it. And so that's what I did. I worked 100 hours a week to get the proposal done. And I got it through the approval process at the college. And usually, and then it got approved in this is December, and it finally got approval in April. And most programs launch, depending on when they're approved in the calendar year, they launch 12 to 18 months later so they can get an opportunity to market the program. My dean said he wanted to start it in September. I said, okay. And so he gave me an opportunity to develop the program, but then also run the program. And so we're starting from scratch here. I had to find the professors. I had to pick the textbooks. I had to do everything. And it's a 12-month program. So we spent the summer developing the fall, spent the fall developing the winter, and the winter developing the spring terms. And so it was full bore, 80 hours, 100 hours a week, getting it done. I remember my family, we ended up taking a vacation. We went down south in March of that year, and I ended up sleeping 18 hours a day because I was just exhausted from it. And so I'd get up and I'd have breakfast, and I'd go find a shady place and fall asleep by the pool or the beach, and I'd wake up and I'd have dinner.
What a great distraction for your brain. I mean, talk about a monstrous piece of learning, right? Like steep learning curve, good for the brain. It was probably what your brain needed.
Absolutely. And I should say before that though, and just by happenstance, I was listening to the radio, and the sport radio here in Ottawa, and our former teammate, Tom Barrasso, was the goaltender for the Ottawa Senators during the playoffs. And Tommy had just stood on his head, but the Senators had lost the game. But the only reason why they were in the game is because of Tom Barrasso's heroics. And the first day he's coming off the ice, and Scott Oak from CBC shoves a microphone in his face, and I thought he asked an inappropriate question to Tom, and Tom just kind of turned and gave a very curt and short answer. I'm not exactly sure what he said, but it was like that's a stupid question or something like that. And the next morning on the radio, the two hosts were carving up Tom.
Oh.
So I called up to the radio station, and I just said, who's calling? They said, it's Jim. And so they put me on the radio, and I happened to say, listen, have you guys ever been in the Ottawa Senators dressing room? No. Have you guys ever met Tom Barrasso? No. I said, well, why are you making these comments about somebody that you've never even met? I'm his former teammate, and I can tell you that Tom is an upstanding guy. Oh, who is this? Who is this? And I said, it's Jim Kyte calling. Oh, yeah, Jim. And they hung up on me. Yeah. So I called back right away, and the producer answered the phone and said, Jim, they're not going to put you back on the air. But as it happens, I get a phone call. My number is listed in the phone book, and this gentleman called me and said, "Is this Jim Kyte? Were you just on the air?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, I'm starting a website called the Sport Faculty. I'm looking for writers. I'd love to have you provide some content." And this is 1999, I think it is. And I said, "Sure." So I could submit anything that I wanted. I wasn't under a deadline or anything, and so I submitted a couple of things, and I got some great feedback on it. And then the Ottawa Citizen found out that I was writing, and so they offered me an opportunity to write a weekly column called The Point Man in the Ottawa Citizen.
It was great. It was great. Why did it end?
Yeah. So it was. I wrote that from 1999, so 2004 till the lockout happened, and then I just got too busy with the on the academic side to be able to continue it. So I only wrote once a week. So I had a newfound respect for those who write opinion columns. I was doing it once a week, and these guys churn out 3-4 times a week opinions. It's one thing to write about what happened in the game, but to come up with a unique perspective and a different angle, I found that to be so. That was the biggest in terms of my brain. Getting it going after my accident, that was a huge. That really lit the fire to get my brain going, because I was a ferocious reader, and I started to write, and I had 900 words was the maximum in my column, 850, 900 words, and so I started my first column, and I started typing away, and then I hit word count, and I made 1,500 words, and I hadn't even made my point yet. I said, "Oh my God."
I remember us talking about this at one point, when you were just getting out of it, getting started and stuff.
So just trying to whittle it down to what really was the germane part of the story, what was important and what was not. And the word "that" is just so I learned so much about writing. And the Citizen never changed one thing in my submission. So that was my deadline was Friday at noon, and I had some pretty late Thursday nights writing, simply because you wanted to make your column as current as possible.
Right.
Yes.
So the Montreal. I remember the Montreal Canadiens cleaned house on a Monday. The coach and general manager got fired, so everybody's writing about it all week. So I couldn't. I would have loved to write about it, but it wasn't really. It was too late to write about it on the weekend. My columns appeared on a Saturday, so I'd watch all the games and all the Sports Center on Thursday night to see if there's something happening, and if not, I had to pull something together. So. So that was a challenge. So getting my brain going, that was really stimulating, for sure.
What happened with, there's the dean, right, of hospitality on your credentials. So
okay.
Jim Kyte, Dean of Hospitality at the Algonquin College, that comes to mind. How did where'd you stumble on that one?
All right, so I'm at the college, and in order to teach, so I was just the coordinator of the program, but I had to teach at least one course. And I taught one course for the first year in every semester. So that was another great learning experience, the preparation, getting in front of class and delivering it. And, this is a post-grad program. So all these students had college and university degrees, and so I was very nervous, stepping in front of these well-educated people. Officially, I didn't have any education at the time, and academic credentials. And so it was all life experience and preparation, and I wanted to make sure that I did a good job. So that was learning. And then they posted the position full time, and I competed for it, and I won the position against some other people that were had their masters in sports management and so forth. But I was very, very prepared. Any negotiation, anything that you do, it's all about preparation. And
well, it just goes to show you, right? I mean, there's certain things you don't have to get certain positions. You just need to know what the job is and be ready to do anything it takes to get the job done, right? I mean, that's what you did, correct?
That's what I did. I was very lucky at that time. But today, if I was going to compete for that job under the same circumstances, I would not even receive an interview.
Wow.
Because they would have an academic requirement, at least a minimum education requirement to be able to be considered for the job.
So that would have been a great loss. Go ahead, Laurie. Sorry.
Well, interesting that's coming up, because my background, Jim, is education. So I thought one day I might have an honorary doctorate in education, but that didn't quite happen. But at the same time, we did a show yesterday called Credentials versus Credibility. And we had over 400 people download that show yesterday right away, because we talked about the credentials are the paper on the wall. The credibility is your experience and what you know. And we're gradually moving away from the credibility and making the world all about credentials. You can't even build a back doorstep here unless you get a piece of paper to do it, right? Yeah. So that's another whole show, but congratulations on everything, absolutely everything. And we had what we call out east a backhanded compliment here, but I'm going to reframe it for you. Kathy says, how come you don't sound like a deaf person?
Okay.
Yeah, because your speech is because your speech is very articulate, right? And we, as a school teacher, elementary school teacher, I had deaf students in my room, and we had our equipment and so on. And of course, the very famous deaf school is in Amherst, Nova Scotia. So, but no, your posture and your positioning does not come across that you even have that disability. So can you explain that?
Yeah.
So my mother was a school teacher.
Okay.
And so my older brother was having a difficult time in school. They never thought my dad lost his hearing. They thought because he contracted the whooping cough when he was a child.
Okay.
So there's no history of a hearing impairment on my dad's side of the family prior to my father. So they never even thought about testing the kids' hearing. So it wasn't until my brother was in grade 1 that they said, okay, something's off here, and they had his hearing tested. And he's 3 years older than I am. So my hearing was tested when I was 3 years of age, and immediately they put a hearing aid on me. They strapped it to my chest with the wires coming up.
Yeah.
So then my other brothers were tested as they came along, and so the school board wanted to send my brothers and I to Belleville. At that time, it was called the Belleville School for the Deaf and Dumb, and and my mother became the head of the PTA, the head of the Parent Teachers Association at the school, and she fought the school board. And she wanted her children to be integrated. And if it wasn't for her advocacy, I would have been sent to Belleville. And I probably would not be very strong orally. I would be a signer. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a signer. Sign language is an absolutely beautiful language. I'm just a product of my environment. And my mother, being a school teacher, even to this day, she's 87 years of age. When we sit down for dinner, she's constantly correcting us in our speech. And so we were always exposed to that at the dinner table. We would sit down, and she would always say, "No, this is the proper way of saying things." So I would have to, when people ask me that, 100%, it's because of my mother, and early intervention with the hearing aids at a young age. And then today, the reason why I'm able to speak with you is because of video conferencing, and also because of the technology with Bluetooth to my hearing aids. So I'm Bluetoothing my hearing aids to my laptop, so I hear very, very well. And my cell phone, for the longest time, was just a texting device or an email device. I could never talk on the phone, but with Bluetooth, I can get by on the phone now. I muddle
What is
through
that
it.
technology, Jim? Like, is it a new technology? Is there a few companies in that space then that are doing this?
Oh no, well, Bluetooth is very, it's very common.
But
It's very common now, but 10 years ago it wasn't. Not certainly in cell phones. So you have Apple's been very strong on accessibility with all their products right from the get-go, and in their design of all their products. And so I have an Apple iPhone, but you can get Bluetooth on Android or a Google phone now. And I Bluetooth to the television as well. Through the hearing aid company that I have. I wear Phonak hearing aids, and so I have a device that hooks up to the TV, so it's not blaring loud. I can watch TV at night, and it's very, very low. But it's loud in my hearing aids, but it's not loud for everybody else. So I have 3 boys, and none of them the hearing gene is not hearing impaired, or deafness gene has not been passed on to my children. Maybe my grandchildren will, but my brothers. Although I have a number of nieces and nephews, all deaf, or legally deaf, I should say. And so, in order to be legally deaf, in order to play in the Deaf Olympics, you must have at least a 55 decibel loss in both ears. Your best ear cannot be better than 55 decibels. So I have 4 nephews and 2 nieces that played for Team Canada on the deaf ice hockey team.
Oh wow!
Now, that's cool. Incredible. So what about the event? Now, there's a big event just on the East Coast that's going to be an annual event, I think, right? How did that go? Oh,
wait. So I was involved with it happened on May the 1st, and then the last year it happens in May. This year it just happened on May 1st. It's called An Evening in the Maritimes, and it's a big lobster dinner. Yeah,
Laurie's from there. Yeah,
big lobster dinner. But sometimes lobster, people are allergic to shellfish, or people can't eat lobster for whatever, cultural reasons and so forth. So they have other meal options as well. And but it's an annual fundraiser for an organization in Ottawa called Able To. It's an acronym for ABLE and the number 2. And they are the only organization in Ottawa that supports all ages and all disabilities right across the spectrum, whether it's physical disability, to mental health, to developmental, you name it, they support it. A big part of their program, one of the programs they have is for fetal alcohol syndrome, and unbeknownst to me, that's actually quite a serious, widespread issue. And so I've learned a lot by being associated with them about other disabilities and people that they support. But they provide 6 core programs, from legal services for disability. It's called REACH. They also do a matching program, almost like Big Brothers and Big Sisters. There's so many people in the community with disabilities that have no social interaction. And so they get matched with somebody, and they spend an afternoon or time with them every week. And there's another one that's a sibling program. So they would have a sibling who has a disability, and so it's very challenging for them to get used to it, and so they have the programs for that, and they also have a financial program that one of my sons is on the autistic spectrum, and so I can say as any parent wonders what's going to happen to your child when you're gone. But particularly those parents who have children with disabilities. And so my son, I think, could be taken advantage of. And so there's a whole program that they have that can help manage finances for those, pay bills, et cetera, for people with disabilities when their support is no longer there, just to make sure from a financial perspective that they're taken care of. So that's another one.
Check out like able to, is it able2.ca type of thing?
Able to, the number 2.
Yeah.
.ca.
No, that's awesome. No, we'd be amiss if we didn't talk about something that I know you love and you still love, but both of us are involved with the Ottawa Senators alumni. So maybe you can give us the scoops and your opinion on the new ownership and Michael Andlauer and what they saw this year, just for the hockey fans out there.
Oh, well, I think it's an exciting time for the organization. And whenever you have new ownership, particularly of the caliber of Michael Andlauer and the other owners as well, they didn't. How should I say this? They didn't perform as well as everybody thought they would on the ice this year, but they have a good core, and they just need to add the pieces. And they're young, and they play an exciting brand of hockey. So I would think that they can only get better. And with the ownership, they're committed to winning. And I think the people in Ottawa are very fortunate to have Michael Andlauer as the owner, and the people in the team that he's assembled. So they're still in their honeymoon phase for sure, but they're doing all the right things.
Excellent. I have the same opinion. I just, the process doesn't happen overnight. You don't go from what it was to what it's going to be in a heartbeat. And the feeling I get from the whole crew and how they're treating the former players, all that stuff is just a notch up. So thanks, Jim. No, it's good.
Well, gentlemen, I hate to be the one to say that we've run out of time. That's
already. That was great.
I know. Is that not like the fastest hour of the week? Jim, you've got so much to say and so much to share. I'm just like in awe of your journey.
Thank you.
The only what the guys used to say about Jim. Jim, what was your playing weight, size and height?
6'5". When I turned pro, I was 210.
Okay.
And then I eventually put on about 5 pounds every little while. So when I finished my career, I played between 222 and 225.
So 222. And Jim, what hand do you throw punches with? Your left hand, right? I know you throw both, but you're a lefty.
No. I'm a righty. I'm a righty predominantly, but I can throw my left if I need to.
Yeah, he can. Here's the problem with fighting. Here's the problem with fighting. Yeah.
No, you learn quickly it's better to give than receive.
Yes. And what I was going to say, Laurie, is the neat thing about Jim is the guys would always say on the bench, you don't want to fight this guy,
right?
Because if you put your head down and he starts swinging, he can't hear you yelling stop. He can't hear you, so you don't want to fight him if he's going to just keep going,
Well, Jim, I have to share with you my relationship with Doug. I've learned a lot about him and his game and how he played and whatever. And I'm always saying to him, Doug, please keep your stick on the ice. Keep your like red, green, keep your stick on the ice. He always ended the shows that way. So, gentlemen, thank you so much, Jim, and Doug too. It's been great, and I've just been in awe of everybody and everything today. And we had so many comments coming up. I couldn't put them all up. So that's a wonderful thing. And we even have one more left before we log off here. And oh, that's Kathy laughing about keep your stick on the ice. So, so Jim, thank you again. We're just so grateful for your time. I know you're busy, and
My pleasure to be here.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
We'll bring back the cause. We'll bring back the cause. Keep going. I know that
Yes.
you know you've got another dream happening, so we'll bring you back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime.
Thank
Happy
you.
to be here. Okay,
Thanks,
take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, bye for now.